Okay. Hey, how are you guys doing today? Okay, so this whole month we've been talking about nutrition. And I hope you guys have really enjoyed the different resources that I've been sending you about smart snacking, um, healthy tips to stay on track. And if you haven't gotten them or you haven't noticed that you got them, check your email or your junk and maybe they're in there. But nutrition has been something that I've been really enjoying sharing about this month because it's something that is super important to me. And if we've had any form of conversation, I do share how changing my diet and how changing the different foods that serve my body basically saved my life, right? And so I love talking nutrition. I love helping people with nutrition and finding ways to enjoy food and still eating really well. And so the best way for me to share that today is something I'm going to do a little PowerPoint and I'm going to show you some graphics. This is something that I learned during school when I was getting certified to become a health coach. And I just love the simplicity of it and the way that we think about are we making good choices for the food that we eat? Is it going to serve our body? And it's just a really good visual. And I'm a huge visual person. So I'm going to just pull it up and we're just going to have some talk about the cool things about how to identify eating well, and it's referred to as traffic light eating. Okay, and so I'm going to pull this PowerPoint up and you're going to, let's see, I'm learning all these things. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you guys. Okay, so the first photo, and I just think it's really important to kind of realize how important our food is for us. Okay, so this was an Oxford Durham study, you can tell. Okay, so this is done with children, and you can see that the handwriting is kind of sloppy, hard to read. And this is a child that isn't eating the healthiest and not getting the nutrition that this little person needs. Okay, so you can kind of see that. Now, if you look after, you can see the difference. Okay, after. Look at the difference in the handwriting. Okay, so this study was on a 6-year-old child, and after 1 month of a diet change. And it also says that they increased the omega-3s, which are the healthy fats. Okay, and so you can just see just in a child the difference of making better food choices, what that impacted for this little guy, this little person. And so again, what will it do for us? What will it impact for us? So I want to talk about how I love looking at food. And it really, for me, when I'm getting ready to make a choice, this always comes up. Is it red, green, or red? Okay. And it's basically just kind of like we drive. Think about when we're driving. Green means what? Go. Yellow means what? Slow down. Red means stop. Okay. And so we're going to talk about the traffic lighting eating. Okay. So there's our traffic light, right? And we really need to pay attention to those when we're driving. The same thing is going to need to be for our food that we eat. Okay. So green means, okay, green foods mean go and get them, eat them. And that looks like, just like this, like it said, foods that are grown, not manufactured, right? Things that don't have a long shelf life, things that don't have a lot of preservatives to be able to stay on the shelf, right? So foods that are naturally grown, those are great for us, that are naturally colored. We don't want all the fake dyes in our food. Things that can be eaten raw, that are high in nutrients include, fruits and vegetables, right? And we know fruits and vegetables are super good for us, okay? So that's a form of a green, um, a green food, which means go and get you some. Okay, so now we have yellow. That means, hey, kind of think about it. Let's pause and see if this is really worth what we should eat, okay? So that looks like they may have a little bit more calories. They may have a little bit more sugar. Now, these things aren't like terrible for us. They aren't going to be like, oh, we shouldn't eat them. But it makes us say, okay, we can have them, but not maybe every single day. Maybe I can have it with one meal versus all 3 meals, okay? Things that are considered like in the yellow, if you want to say, is kind of like pasta. Okay, we can have it, but we don't want to eat it every single day. Bread, again, we don't want to eat that every single day. So those are some things that, we kind of want to like slow down and think about. Changing up our meats, maybe not having red meat every single day, right? We've heard all of these things. This isn't new, but for me, when I see like, oh, yellow, like, okay, let me pause and let me think. It like gives my brain a moment instead of thinking, is this good for me? Is it bad for me? It gives me a moment to kind of just like pause and go, all right, have I eaten that? Have I not? And so I love, again, just this visual of this scenario. Okay. And then we have red, and red are always the ones that like just taste really, really good. But here I already talked about these yellow ones. Okay. So let's go to red. Okay. So red ones mean like really, really stop and think about it. Okay. It means that, you may want to eat a smaller portion of it. You may, want to just have, maybe, you can have a different choice. It has less nutrients for you. It has more calories. It's got artificial flavors. It has more sugar. And they all taste really good. I'm not denying that they don't taste good. But what happens too is when we eat a lot of these things, it kind of triggers something in us, and it makes us want to have more and more. And then that doesn't serve our body, right? It can really trigger the inflammation that we're carrying. It can just not be beneficial for us. But again, it's not saying that we can't have these. That's not what a balanced nutrition life looks like. It means having things in moderation, having things that when we do eat these, we've kind of ate so good that, up until that point, that it's okay. I'll give you an example. I had a friend that she was, trying to change her diet, and it was around Valentine's Day. And she's like, I'm just so sad. I really want to enjoy everything that is about Valentine's. I want to enjoy the meal, and I want to enjoy the dessert. And she was kind of beating herself up. And I said, okay, well, why can't you enjoy those? And she's like, because I'm changing the way I'm eating. And I said, okay, well, how about we just change the way you look at this? I said, how about, I think she was like a week and a half before Valentine's Day. And I said, how about for the next week and a half, you just make really good choices. Make sure that you eat healthy and you make really good choices. And then the day that you and your husband go out for dinner, you just enjoy the meal. You just enjoy everything that goes around that thing. And don't beat yourself up, because it's the balance act that we need to do, right? Okay. And so that changed the way she looked forward to the event, and it kept her focused on, hey, I'm going to make good choices. I'm going to serve my body well, so that when I do put some things in there that aren't as great, my body can handle it. Okay. And so that's just what this balanced eating looks like. And again, it's not all or nothing. That's the thing that I love to be able to change with people's mind is it's not all or nothing, but it's a balance, okay? And she went in and really enjoyed the day and the evening with her husband, and she walked away without feeling, she didn't beat herself up, and she didn't limit herself. She allowed herself to be able to eat that. And that's the beauty about, just rethinking the way we look at food. Because we can't always be eating vegetables and fruit all the time. There's got to be that balance act. And so I love, again, just being able to have that, like, 80-20, 90-10, whatever scenario works for you, to continue to stay making good choices for yourself. So this is some stuff about, this is some things about the red light, that says, hey, stop, take a moment, really think about it. Think about, again, how that's going to serve you or the children or your family or whatever. Okay. So what foods can we eat, right? So let's first of all, before we can even talk about what foods we can eat, let's look at what I think is really important to understand how to read a label. And a lot of times, we don't really read the label. We just look at that front cover and think, oh, it's great. Okay. One of the things that we need to look at when we're reading a label is look at the serving size. And I know I'm so guilty about this. I don't really look at this. I wasn't really looking at the serving size. I'm just like, oh, I'll just have this much. But when you look at the serving size and then you start going, okay, this is what it has per serving, you're like, oh, that kind of makes a difference, right? And so always look at your serving size, because that's portion control. That's important, for us to learn portion control. And then it says here, don't eat too much of the stuff in the pink, right? Your fat, your saturated fat, the cholesterol, the sodium. If you look at stuff at how much sodium is in things, it is crazy. And so again, you just want to look at that, because that's important, right? And so like for 1 cup, there's 660 milligrams of sodium. That's like crazy. Okay. And then the next, if you look down, you want to get less of these. Okay. And that is, look at the sugar. And a lot of times it will say sugar and then sugar added. And so you got to kind of look at that too. And then there's the daily value guide. Okay. And again, that just kind of tells you a little bit more about it. And I think it's just really important that we look at that, because I can just not look at it. And then I'm like, when I do, and I don't portion it out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just basically, I really should have done better on that. So I love being able to just kind of show you a little bit about how the label should look. Okay. Now, the nutrition fact, okay? And now you want to look at this. And so for each cup, this is what the nutrition is. And then if you see at the bottom, it says, look at what's in there. There's some modified cornstarch, high fructose syrup, corn syrup, non-fat milk. Okay, those are some things that maybe, might not be the greatest for us, right? Modified cornstarch, anything modified, it's not great because it's not in its original form. High fructose corn syrup, it's in so many things and it's just not great for us. But it's also good to kind of look at this and go, all right, if we're supposed to have some daily guide, here's what it looks like. And you can see like there's really no fiber. I mean, there's, not a whole lot of protein. So again, looking at this just opens our eyes and makes us more aware and puts us in the driver's seat versus the food driving us. It gives us back our power. And I think sometimes food gets away from us. Okay, so what we're looking for when we look at the ingredients in food, okay, is when we're looking at our what's in it, okay? You want your ingredient list. So when you're looking at your package and you're like, okay, I've read the label, I see what that is, but then what's in it? Okay, that's super important to know what's in it. And you want it to be a short list because that means it's not got all kinds of junk in it. So 10 or less are the best, okay? And honestly, when you so it's like the first really 5 ingredients or so is the most that's in there. So let's just say that like the second ingredient, was sugar. That would mean that's a lot of sugar. You know what I'm saying? So always, try to read those labels and then look for something that's got 10 or less, but know that like your first 5 are what's mainly in that, okay? Good words to look for are like whole grains. Um, that's really important. Once that you can actually pronounce. How many times do you read a label and you're like, yeah, I don't, what on earth? Okay. High protein, high fiber, low sugar, and low trans fats. That's what you want to look at when you're making choices to purchase something. Okay. And then what do we want to avoid? You want to avoid that high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, trans fats, artificial colors, artificial flavors, a long list. Um, and then, I mean, they hide so many things. It sometimes you get tired of it because they keep trying to change the words to manipulate us to think that we're making good choices. But here's some different names, for sugar. And it's just sometimes it's like, really, guys, could you just not keep it simple? Okay, so I want us to take a look at some foods. And again, when I show you these, please know that like everybody has them. I raised my kids on them. It wasn't until my kids were grown and out of the home that we started making healthier choices. But when we know better, we do better. And I guess I just really feel like, knowledge is power. So please know when I share these, do not be like, oh my gosh, oh, I'm so terrible. Like, no, that's not it. Okay. Just moving forward, this might be something that you're like, okay, you know what? These are some simple changes. And and I always say like when you are working on like cleaning up your pantry and making healthier swaps, do it in baby steps. I always call it a ditch and switch, okay? So when you are finished with something that you've had, just buy a better option. And it might not be the best, but it's a better one, and then work your way up, okay? But don't go and go, oh my gosh, I need to completely clean out my entire pantry, my refrigerator, my everything, and start fresh. No, you don't. Just when that product or that item is used up, then switch it to a better product, okay? All right, so let's take a look at some. All right, so a couple of things again, that we want to look for is that what's in it. So like sugar and high fructose syrup, those are not the best ones in there. Okay. All right. So Frosted Flakes. Who I raised my daughter on Frosted Flakes, you guys, and in there is sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Okay. And I don't know why it says name that food, but anywho, name that food is Frosted Flakes. Okay, I raised my kids on it. She's 27 now. She still loves Frosted Flakes. And sometimes she'll say, Mom, I know, it's not good for me, but I want it. And that's okay. But this one, I always was like, oh my gosh, okay, not the greatest, food. You see, there's really like not a whole lot of anything in it. Cereal is like one of the least nutrition things, but she loved it when she grew up so much. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, this one, Wonder Bread. My son-in-law will only eat Wonder Bread. And and again, it's got, sugar and it's this soybean oil. Soybean oil is so not good for us. And so anyways, again, not the best choice. My daughter is trying to switch out some things for him, but the bread is really a hard one for him. So one of the tips that I recommended is in one way that you can do this. Okay, so if like bread is something that you're trying to change, and again, remember it's kind of in your mind and it's in your taste buds, right? When we're changing out foods, there's so much that goes along with our attachment to food. It can be emotion. It can just be like how it, makes us feel, right? The emotion, how it feels, in our brain, what we've said, like, oh, I love the chewiness, like what we've said in our head to the food, makes that memory and makes that connection. And so one way, that I've suggested to her, and I've done it for my husband too, because he was used to that nice doughy bread, and that's not always the greatest, is that I would take one piece of bread of the healthy choice and one piece of bread of his favorite, and I would make his sandwich. And slowly, I did this for a while, like a month, and slowly it changed. And he was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, all right, hey, I'm going to make your sandwich with all bread like that. And at first he was like, it's not I don't hate it. He's like, but it's not that bad. And now my husband is very much used to the better bread. So again, it's just making those slow changes where didn't have a bad impact on it, where he would, had I made a sandwich for my husband and been like, here's healthy bread, and then he would have created that memory attachment to it. I don't like the way it tastes. It's tougher. It's not as flavorful. It's not as doughy. He would have had that connection, where versus he's like, he still had that doughiness taste. Does that make sense? So again, it's little tiny baby steps. And again, that's what we've talked about with this whole program with Be Well, Care Well, right? It's tiny little steps that make for a better us. And this is one little change. Like if you want to do healthier bread, but you're like, I don't really want to, just try switching out one piece and working your way up. So that's what my daughter is trying to do with my son-in-law as well. And we know that anything white is not great for us. Okay. Anything that white bread, I mean, it's better to have wheat bread. And so that's one that I know a lot of people love. Okay, another one. We're just going to go through a couple more here. Okay, this one, Cool Whip. Oh my gosh, we all have like literally spooned it out of the container and literally ate it. I mean, I know I have in the past. Um, because it's so delicious, right? It just makes desserts yummy. It's wonderful to dip fruit in. And look at all the things in it. Okay. There's really this is just a bowl of non-beneficial things. And I'm not saying you can't have it. That's not what I'm saying. But like, think about that. Like, does that look like it's going to serve your body? Does that really, the things that is going to give your body life? And when you go back to the first screen, the first thing that I showed you was how food impacts us and the writing of that child. Think about that. So, but I thought that one was a really eye opener when I started looking at ingredients. And a lot of these came from when I had to do the pantry makeover and I was learning about nutrition and things. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, like eye opener. And let's see, this is the last one. Okay. This one, I remember giving my kids this. Now, this was a treat. Okay, we consider this a treat when my kids were younger. And look at, like, again, second ingredient, high fructose syrup. Well, and I would send them off to school, or like in their treat, as a treat in their lunch, I would buy those little things and I would be like, here. And literally, I was not setting them up for success for the day. Natural flavors. Okay, that's not good. And then the food coloring. And so, anywho, again, sometimes when we think, what we're doing, we don't really give it a whole lot of attention, but this hopefully is kind of making you go, oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. I guess I had a couple more. Oh yeah, okay. I did do this one because my grandson loves this stuff. Loves it, loves it, loves it. And I mean, I can pronounce wheat flour. Like seriously. I can, I mean, I can hardly pronounce these words. And I mean, where's the nutrition in this? You know? And so, and it's really hard sometimes when he comes to visit because he knows that like Nana has a little bit healthier choices. I do keep this in the house for him because he's used to it, but it's very, very hard for me. I have to say he's a real picky eater and he lives off this stuff. And so, there are some better options. And here's the one thing that, I do sneak in and he doesn't realize, okay? When I make this for him, I puree carrots and I puree cauliflower because he doesn't know because it's so pureed and it's orange and it's sorry, and it's orange, the cauliflower's white. I puree it so fine he doesn't realize it. So I do sneak in some extras just because it's important to me to get that. So that's one way that you can kind of sneak that stuff in. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. So anyways, I hope that this was beneficial for you. I hope that this kind of, I don't get a chance to talk to all of you and I don't get a chance to just sit down and have conversation. And this is my way of doing it is through video. So I hope that, I don't know, I just hope that this kind of just opened your eyes a little bit. And again, please know I am not like criticizing. I am not judging. I just want you to have the information and then you make the decision on whatever you want. And however you want. And again, it is little tiny baby steps. It might mean for a while you are just going to change out your breakfast. And maybe for the next month, you're going to be like, you know what? I've been grabbing a Pop-Tart and a Sunny D for breakfast every morning. Maybe I'm going to make up some egg muffin tin things where I can put some egg, make it like a little egg bites. It might mean that, and that is awesome. Okay. But I just wanted to share this with you because I think it's such great information. I love it so much. I love it for the way you think about it, the traffic light. It's an easy thought process where you can be like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. When I reach for something, the immediate thought is red, yellow, or, green, red, green, yellow, or red. Words are hard sometimes. And that image comes right up into my head and it helps me make that decision a lot quicker and everything. So if you have any questions, if you want to dive into your pantry and you're like, I need total help, I would love to help you. The other thing, the other tip as you're walking through your pantry that you can do is put stickers on things. So or a marker or whatever, but get the kids involved, right? Get your family involved and identify things. Go through your pantry and like classify them because then maybe that will even open your eyes a little bit more and be like, okay, we need to switch out some things. But if you don't identify them, it's kind of hard and you take that time. So either put a color on there with a marker, get some stickers, but have a fun day of redoing your pantry and categorizing it and switching things out if need be. All right, let me know if you have any questions. And I think you're doing great. You guys are doing so good with everything that you're doing. And I'm so proud of all of you. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.